What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with another Destiny 2 video. In this one, we're going to speak about Shadow and Order. This is Destiny 2's next major update, of course the second major update that we've ever had, at least with regards to this content format, right? Because this is Bungie's new kind of seasonal model in a way, their plan to support the live game of Destiny between the major expansions. Shadow and Order will be following Renegades, which of course, while player numbers have been lower, most people who've stuck around to actually play Renegades consider it to be some of the best content that we've had for Destiny, not necessarily because it can compete with the expansions of old, right, the Final Shape or Forsaken or whatever it may be, but because the content bundle, the activity content and pursuits have been pretty good. Last time we got a major update, of course, it was Ash and Iron, so the reception for that was pretty rocky, and it'll be interesting to see how Shadow and Order compares to that. But in the video today, we're going to break down what we know about the next major update, new content that we'll see, additional changes Bungie are implementing for D2, new rewards, activities, and of course, the continuation of Bungie's efforts to support the live game and improve on the systems introduced in Year of Prophecy. So if you guys enjoyed the video, a rating very much helps us out down below. Now though, let's get into it. First up, we should say, the next major update, Shadow and Order, arrives on the 3rd of March 2026. As we can see, from the roadmap, it will get another reward pass, just like we had in Ash and Iron, and of course, the others that we've had with the expansions. That includes a new exotic weapon, ornament, legendary gear, cosmetics, and all of that stuff. Additionally, major updates are listed as coming with new and reprised activities, so we'll certainly see more updates to the portal. There'll also be a new sandbox meta, continued live events, as well as new gear and artifact mods, so we sort of understand the blueprint for Shadow and Order. Another thing that players are anticipating is the roadmap that Bungie have promised. They describe this as a state of the game and multi-year roadmap. We don't know exactly when we're going to be getting it, but the hope and expectation from players is certainly that it will come sooner rather than later, so fingers crossed that we'll get it by around about the time that Shadow and Order drops. It would appear that Shadow and Order will once again get a launch event. In the last major update, this was referred to as New Territories, which basically was a small activity introduction for the upcoming content and boosted chances to pick up the rewards from the content drop in the first week. In the database, the Shadow and Order launch event currently has images of the tower, which are actually D1 concept art images. They could just be placeholders, but they also may pertain to some of the content we might see. An additional component for the upcoming update, Bungie have revealed, I believe by accident, a description for what this update may actually be about. So this was the Lawless major update description, found in-game alongside Renegades. It's since been updated, but it said, race the Dredgen and their outlaw mercenaries to a weapon of shadowy legend, storm a hive weapons foundry, and prevent the Dredgen from expanding their corrupted arsenal. Best we can tell, that doesn't relate to Renegades directly, outside of the Dredgen influence. And as we mentioned, Bungie have since updated it, and it now refers to Renegades content specifically, so the assumption is that they accidentally allowed this description into the game early. The main things to pick out from that, though, are the weapon of shadowy legend. The legend reference makes us think that this might be something that's returning from Destiny 1, or pertains to Destiny's lore, even. There's also the reference to the Hive Weapons Foundry, which seems likely to relate to some of the activity content, whether it's a portal activity, or maybe an exotic mission once again like we had for Ash and Iron. Isn't entirely clear yet, but it kind of gives us a general flavour of what Shadow and Order will be about. Leaks also suggested that the Dredgen organization as a whole is coming back into the picture as a significant narrative component for this content drop. Otherwise, we are kind of left to speculate as to what we might see. Although, Bungie did confirm that they will introduce a new raid and dungeon style event in the 4th major update of the year. So they said this event will introduce novelty and allow the team to experiment with legacy raid and dungeon offerings in order to create surprising aspirational challenges. Now, the rumour from recent leaks suggests that Bungie will be bringing back raid bosses from Scourge of the Past, Crown of Sorrow, and Spire of Stars, specifically Insurrection Prime, Gowran, and Val Kaur. And that would indicate that this may be a kind of raid gauntlet style activity, similar to Pantheon that we had a couple of years back. Although this will not be the core piece of content for Shadow and Order, that will probably be the Dredgen story related thing or the Hive Weapons Foundry. And in fact, based on previous years, of course, Pantheon dropped later on after Into the Light in the run up to the expansion, and it was the same when Bungie did Rite of the Nine. So the rad event component probably dropping a bit later on after March. Although we do know about other potential updates to the game. So firstly, Bungie have said we'll get more sandbox tuning when we get to Shadow and Order. So in the update before Renegades, they said, in addition to the sandbox changes for the next expansion, we have more exciting ability changes planned for Shadow and Order. Otherwise, of course, we don't know the specifics yet. Additional indications of potential content updates. Bungie had said they have plans to introduce methods to get stuff from the portal, which were basically cycled out of the core loot rotation for Renegades. So that would include weapons like Min Retrograde, Texec armor or whatever. Currently, they can be randomly obtained from Hawthorne engrams, but otherwise they won't drop in activity content, so they're not necessarily farmable. A lot of us have them already, but there are certainly players who missed out on them in the last update. And given that Bungie haven't announced anything further regarding those pieces of loot, it seems quite likely that they'll introduce it with Shadow and Order specifically. Something else that Bungie had said they have plans for is a way to upgrade the tiers of pieces of gear that we have. So we don't know precisely how the system will work, but in Shadow and Order we're anticipating being able to upgrade a tier 2 to a tier 5. And presumably that will require some kind of investment between currency and potentially even just using the weapon. Let me know how valuable you think that system may actually be at this point, given how easy it is to get tier 5 gear, although most of it still is tied to the power grind, so some players, of course, are still on that journey. But other components which are interesting at the moment appear to be ciphers for a handful of different playlists. So there are Fireteam ciphers, Crucible ciphers, and even an Iron Banner cipher, as well as Pinnacle Ops ciphers, which actually are our old Nightfall ciphers. So if you currently have any Nightfall ciphers sitting in your inventory, if you take a look at them, they're now actually Pinnacle Ops ciphers, but we don't have any specific way of using them just yet. So that appears to be another update that Bungie have planned. They had indicated that they had plans for ciphers in Renegades, but we haven't heard anything further yet. So given that others are obviously being added to the game as well, the assumption is that we will get that stuff starting in Shadow and Order. Whether we are going to see another exotic mission though isn't entirely clear yet. Obviously we'd love to see that, especially if it pertains to a weapon of shadowy legend, as the text description potentially indicates. But as a quick roundup, obviously, the reward pass, new gear being added to the playlist in the portal, potentially the reprisal of stuff from the Edge of Fate era, a narrative focused on expanding the kind of Dredgen story in the game a bit, a Hive Weapons Foundry, the Raid and Dungeon event, further updates to the game, and potentially an exotic mission or something if we're lucky. It's kind of what we should expect to see, so I wanted to go into it in a little bit more detail today for any players who are wondering what it might look like. Also, if I've forgotten anything that Bungie had announced for the next major update, let me know in the comment section. There may be some little tidbits, like I almost forgot about the gear tier upgrade that Bungie had mentioned. So if there's anything else you can think of, let us know in the comment section, and generally give us your thoughts on what you'd like to see. But if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating really does help us out on the channel. Be sure as well to hit subscribe, and I will keep you up to date with more things related to Destiny 2. But otherwise, I appreciate you all tuning in, and I hope you have an awesome day.